Hello, I'm Sarah Lister from Sheffield Digital, and today I'm talking to Elliot Chaim, who is the founder of Bolster and head of engineering at Mina. Why did you decide to start working at Mina in addition to running your digital consulting business?
When I was offered the position at Mina, I was discussing it, I realised what a great opportunity it was going to be for me to grow as an individual. Obviously, that growth enables me to take learnings from Mina and sort of apply them back into Bolster. So Mina is a high growth startup. When I joined, I was employee number 1. Now we're on like 13 or 14 and we're still hiring. And learning from all those people every day is a great opportunity. I've learned things that I didn't even know I didn't know when I joined Mina. And so it's a great opportunity for me to grow. And obviously I believe in the cause as well. It's an important mission, and I really do think that it will succeed and that it will grow to be an even bigger business, which means that I'll get exposed to that type of growth and sort of challenges that we're going to face along the way. It's really exciting, and again, it's just going to help me in my career, and hopefully one day I can take those learnings and apply them to Bolster or apply them to the next business that I found. Yeah.
How did you come across the company initially?
Well, the CTO at Mena, who's called Andrew Gunn, used to be my sort of manager at a previous role, and so I knew about Mena whilst they were sort of bootstrapping it before they raised their first round of investment, and it was always something that we talked about, in our personal time. And so when he told me that he was hiring and that he wanted me, sort of flattered that he thought of me as sort of his first hire, but I suppose, again, knowing how much effort had gone into it already and knowing that they were about to close their first round of investment, really sold it to me. Yeah.
Are there any correlations between the two separate businesses?
So yes and no. I mean, the businesses themselves solve very different business problems. Mina's obviously a startup focused on making EVs in general easier for the general public and for business drivers, whereas Bolster is a bit of a consultancy / software development firm. So it really depends on who the client is. So the problem itself is very different, but how the problem is solved is very similar. And like I said before, practicing different processes and techniques in one business and then taking them across to the other one and vice versa is a really helpful setup that I've got going on. So I think it benefits both businesses quite a lot, and I've definitely brought things that I've learned over in Bolster across to Mina, and vice versa. So yeah, the problems are very different, but the ways that we solve them are very similar.
And how do you balance your energy between working for Mina and leading Bolster?
Good question. It's difficult, and I suppose to anybody that doesn't work that much, it seems unsustainable. But I suppose it's important to note that I've built that up over time. So I didn't just go from working 35 hours a week in my main job to working 10, 15 plus hours a week in my second job, in 1 week. I built it up over years, really. And I suppose it helped that I actually spent a good 6 months, I think, working full-time at Bolster and really getting the foundations for that in place before I flip-flopped and went back to working full-time for someone else. But really, it's about, I sit down from time to time and I plan out my weeks. And I don't mean week to week. I mean, like Monday evenings, I know that I'm not working because I'm doing other things. And I always work on Tuesday evenings. I always work on Wednesday evenings. So I know how much time I've got. And I don't necessarily decide what I'm going to do on those evenings, because sometimes I'll swap things around and I do a bit of Bolster in the daytime and I do a bit of Mina on an evening. But just knowing what time I've got, it helps me know where I can fit in family time, where I can fit in hobbies and sports, or spend time with my kids. And in fact, that sounds the wrong way around, and it is, because it's more like, okay, I'm going to spend time with my family on this evening. I'm going to spend time with my family on Saturdays and Sundays. So where can I fit work around that? But I suppose, you know, to answer your actual question, it takes careful planning and it takes building up to it. You know, you build up the stamina and you have to enjoy it. I enjoy everything that I do. I enjoy working for Mina a lot, and I really enjoy solving problems for my clients at Bolster as well. Yeah, and don't get me wrong, sometimes it's difficult, and sometimes I get bored doing certain things, and you know, I suppose that's the case with any job though. You just have to power through, or maybe take a break, you know, take a few weeks off. Sometimes for me, taking a week off means just doing one job for that week, and that works. You know, it gives me some time to spend more time with my family and my friends. So noticing when too much, you know, when it's too much, and taking sort of steps to proactively solve that rather than burning out is an important skill. And I think you just develop it naturally over time. Obviously, you know, everyone's been burnt out in the past, and once you've done that a few times, you realise what you need to do to not let it happen again. You've got the scars to prove it. You can feel it come in.
And what does your role at Mena primarily involve doing?
So at Mina, I'm the head of engineering, and that's a funny title because, yeah, what does that mean? And I suppose that means different things in different businesses. So Mina right now, what that means is, you know, I'm doing a lot of software development, you know, but I manage the rest of the development team. I manage the front end developers, the back end developers. And I wouldn't say that I define all the processes, but I certainly orchestrate that happening. And it's important that as a team, we all feel ownership about the direction that we're going in. And I think we've got a good balance there. But I suppose at the end of the day, it's my responsibility to make sure that happens. So I sort of put in the meetings and I make sure that people are moving along with you know, the things that they've been delegated to do. But I've got a great team working with me, so it's not really very hard. You know, they're very proactive. At the end of the day, my main sort of KPI, if you like, is making sure that the engineering function at Mena, and that is, you know, developers and their output, has a high velocity. And so anything that helps that is within my remit. I don't just talk to developers all day. I spend a lot of time working with the product team and working with the founders and working with operations, and just making sure that we can all do whatever we can to make sure that as we develop the products, we do it in as streamlined a fashion as possible.
And has your role at Mina changed since you first started working with them?
Yeah, definitely. So this is what I meant before, where Mina's a high growth startup and things are changing constantly. When I started, there were no other developers. There was Andy, the CTO, who was a developer, but, you know, historically, and it was just me and him. And as time went on, we hired other people to help us. We've now got a team of 6 developers. We've got 2 more joining in January. And so, yeah, naturally my position has slightly changed from just, you know, develop everything, develop it quick, develop it dirty, we just need to get this done, to, okay, we've now got a team, let's help them develop things, to, right, we've got an even bigger team now. How do we sort of make sure that as a team we're all going in the same direction, and that we all agree on certain things, and that where we disagree, and it's fine to disagree, it doesn't slow us down. And so, yeah, I'm doing less and less software development as time goes on, and more talking to people and communicating and sort of orchestrating conversations.
So how did you go about finding those people to hire?
It's very difficult, I think, especially in the current climate. Hiring software developers is probably the biggest challenge that we've got at Mena. And it's just something that you can't give up on, I suppose. It helps that Andy, the CTO, has got, you know, he's got a lot of what I'll call social capital. So he knows a lot of people from previous roles, and you know, I think that's one of the most effective ways of hiring people. I suppose the same with me to a lesser extent. Some of our hires have been people that I've worked with in the past and that I've, you know, called up and asked to apply. But we have also hired people that we don't know, and when we do that, we just have to sort of, I don't know, hope that our job advert is appetizing and that we get it out to the right place at the right time. Sometimes consider using recruiters. Sometimes we have to headhunt. We just have to be creative and see what works at this moment in time and what works at different times.
Mm-hmm. And have you taken people on who are living and working in Sheffield?
Yeah, it's actually much bigger than that. Yeah, we have, I would say, off the top of my head, about half of Mina's employees live in Sheffield, and the rest are spread out. We've got people up in Leeds. We've got people down in Derby and further south than that in places I don't know the names of, because that's about as far as my geographic knowledge goes. We've got people over in Manchester as well. So, I mean, I think we would have considered remote working anyway, but the sort of changing culture across the country post-COVID has definitely helped in that regard, because I think, as well as people being more open to remote working and more open to enabling it, candidates are more open to applying to roles that are further afield, because they don't feel like they're missing out if they're working in a different city to where they're actually living. But I think it's important also that you sort of meet the people that you're working with. So we do get those people that don't live in Sheffield to come in from time to time, and sometimes we meet them where they are. It's all about, I suppose, reminding them that they're an important part of the team and they're not just over there in Manchester. We actually recently had our Mina sort of Christmas do, and that was the first time in over a year and a half that everybody's been together, which was a bit crazy, actually. It's been that long, but yeah, the first time that the whole company was together.
And what about with Bolster? Is that just you, or do you have other people working with you?
Bolster, yes. I in terms of like full-time employed people, it's just me. But when I have projects on that are reasonably big, I have what I call like a network of freelancers that I work with. And so, like a roster, I suppose, and it's all people that I've worked with in the past in previous jobs, or less so, but a little bit of people that have been recommended to me by people that I trust. And so, depending on the project, I sort of spin up a bit of a temporary team. And part of the deal with Bolster, as with me, is that it's always on a part-time basis. Most of those freelancers have other jobs and work with me on Bolster projects sort of in the evening or in the morning, depending on when they want to, basically. And I think that works really well, and it empowers them. It allows those freelancers to monetize their spare time if they want to, and grow as individuals themselves. It's less risky for me as a sort of business owner. It's obviously quite a responsibility to hire somebody and properly employ them. I don't think that I'm willing to sort of take that responsibility on whilst I'm not doing it full time.
What sort of projects do you typically work on?
It does vary. There's been a lot of software development projects. So, for example, I've delivered iOS apps for, what do they call them? For like engineers that go out and service power lines, energy sort of power cables.
Oh, wow.
Out on land. And on the other side of the spectrum, I've delivered brochure websites for estate agents, which we don't usually do marketing sites, but which integrate with sort of data feeds, like back office systems that estate agents might have to pull through property data. And I've delivered IoT solutions, which, physical hardware. I've designed and procured the physical hardware to put on to other sort of my clients' products, and sort of deliver remote analytics so that they can completely change their servicing model. So it really does vary depending on the client and what their problem is. I suppose one way to put that is we don't do simple projects. We only do complex applications or complex, IoT solutions. And that's sort of like the software development side of things. I also I'm trying to do more and more of the sort of strategic partnership with clients, where I work with them long term and we try and help them achieve their business goals, like provide a technical strategy to enable their business strategy. Some business owners aren't experienced or comfortable, sort of, they know that they need technology and they know that they want to do something called digital transformation, but they don't really know what that means or what it is. So that's sort of like where I'll come in and I'll guide them to make the right decisions. And I really prefer that, actually. I'm trying to do more of it. It creates a much better dynamic for, you know, that relationship between Bolster and the client, where we're sort of working together long term. You become invested in each other's success, rather than having this transactional, you know, let's do this project. You know, as well as that might go, when the project is done, the relationship is on pause, or not on pause, but you know, it quietens down. Whereas if you've got this long-term partnership, then you're sort of always thinking about their best interests. And so when something pops up, you can send them a message and say, we thought about doing this. Or when I read a book that I'm trying to learn things to apply to my businesses or to Mina, I can pass that on to them as well and say, have you thought about doing this? This sounds like a great idea. And it's just a much healthier dynamic, and I think it promotes success in the relationship a lot more. Everybody wants to work with people that they like working with, you know, develop a good working relationship or friendship even, rather than you're my client, you're my supplier. Yeah, so when everyone enjoys what they're doing and enjoys the people we're working with, then they'll do better. And you know, it's just better for your mental health, I suppose, as well, isn't it? You look forward to going and doing that work rather than dreading it.
So how do your clients find you? Is it through your website, or is it through your connections from the past? How do people identify you as a company to work with?
So today, a lot of the clients through at Bolster have found me through referrals, or they've sort of know of me. Sort of, you know, I've met them at a networking event, or we just came across each other before. So I suppose to summarize that, through my network, and you know, connecting with people on LinkedIn, it helps have a LinkedIn presence. Not really so much the website. I don't sort of, maybe I should do more SEO on that, but I've not prioritized that. I don't pay for AdWords and bounce people towards it. The website's just there really to provide some authenticity and prove that Bolster is an actual website, and show a logo grid of the people I've worked with, just to support it really, you know, make people realize that it's real. But yeah, most of if not all of the clients have come through referrals or through my network.
That's great. And where did you learn the skills that you have, which sounds like a mixture of leadership skills as well as the more technical skills? Where did it all begin, and how have you grown and developed?
Yeah, good question. I think it just happens naturally. I worked in a startup before I started Bolster and before I worked at Mina. And so that was a great opportunity to grow as an individual. I think it's fair to say that I'm always very conscious about what I want to learn next and what skills I'm weakest on. So yes, what I said before, it does happen naturally. It does happen naturally, organically as time goes on. But I very much thought about which position I'm putting myself in to enable that learning. So I think, yeah, that aside, it happens as you do it. You know, you try and you fail, you try and you succeed. You work with other people that already know how to do it, and you watch what they're doing, and you mimic it, you copy them, and you Google it, and you sort of see what the internet says. Yeah, you just got to keep trying.
Do you think that your education or any courses or qualifications has had any sort of significant impact towards your career so far, or has it more been through learning on the job as such?
Yeah, good question. So I will say that I probably wouldn't have got my first job out of uni if I'd not been to uni and got my degree. But nobody ever asked what I learned in my degree. You know, it's just a badge, isn't it? It's like, and to be honest, I very rarely applied the very theoretical things I learned studying computer science in my job as a software developer. So I think if there are students listening or people that have just left school or they're in college, I would recommend going to uni, unless you can find yourself a sort of apprentice job in software development, if that's what you're going to do. But then, yeah, once you're in the industry, once you've found your way in, that I wouldn't. There's no qualification I would recommend. Not for me anyway. I never sort of went and did courses or anything like that. I mean, I've done a few courses over the years, and some of them I had to do, some of them I didn't. But you just learn on the job. You just. So I suppose that's easy for me to say because I've had some good jobs and I've worked with some really. Some people are really good at what they do, and I think that really helps. So if you find yourself to be in that lucky position, then just keep learning from them. If you don't, then I don't know, because I've not been in that position. Find a better job, or yeah, maybe courses will help in that. But I would imagine that you're doing a course to get a better job. So it's all about learning from people on the job for me.
Did you take a very considered approach in your applications to finding your first couple of jobs? Or do you actually consider yourself as just really lucky?
Yeah, I think I'm lucky. Maybe not the answer you want, but yeah, I didn't realise the opportunity that I'd applied for and that I got at the time. Looking back on it, I grew as an individual, and my career has moved forward at a pace which other people aren't lucky to have. Not to undermine myself, I think my ability helps with that as well, but it's the combination of the opportunity and the ability. Yeah, and I want to, in my first job after uni, I said it already, the people that you work with, sort of broadening your mindset and showing you what's possible, not just in work, but in life. And, what can I aim for? It really helps motivate you.
Do you have thoughts about which direction you'd like to go in with your career? And does Mina support career development?
Yeah, definitely. So my career is very, for me, it's very well thought out. I have a 5-year plan, I have a 3-year plan, I have a 1-year plan. I just did it last week. Again, I do it sort of every 6 months. So it's not an accident that things go the way they go. They don't, sometimes courses change, but I'm very conscious of where I want to get to, and it's all rooted in personal objectives. It's not just for the sake of it. There are things that I want to achieve in my personal life. And I think, okay, how can my career support that? So yeah, I do plan it out. Mina is very supportive. I've worked with Andy, the CTO, for 5+ years now, I think, and so we've learned to be very open with each other. But I don't hide my sort of aspirations from anyone, and I talk about business number 3 and the ideas that I've got, and I'm very open about those with people that I work with, the other founders at Mena, and where they can, they support it as much as possible. Obviously, within the sort of realm of Mena is sort of the top priority, right? But as much as possible, and this is not just for me but for everyone, we'll sort of try and align sort of aspirations so that your aspiration helps yourself and it helps the business, it helps Mina. And if you can do that with your employees, then it's a win-win. I think that's a recipe for success.
Why do you think it is that you're so work motivated, like to do essentially 2 jobs? Like what for you is the goal, or what are the goals that you're really working towards?
Yeah, good question. it obviously helps that I enjoy it. And I think I've learned to enjoy it because I've succeeded in the past at what I've tried to do. And so I probably created a bit of a habit, for better or for worse, where I, I enjoy setting myself a goal and then playing the long game and seeing it happen. There's something really rewarding about whipping out the 3-year plan from 2 years ago and seeing that you're 2/3 of the way there. And, it really is a good feeling. And then I don't know, I suppose there's a little part of me that knows that I can go further, and I really want to make that happen. I think I read a few books sort of 4 or 5 years ago that sort of really clicked for me and made me realize that anyone can sort of achieve any goal that they want within reason. And you just have to set yourself the goal and work back from it. What do you need to do to achieve that? And it sounds scary, but you can actually achieve it. And I've found firsthand that it's possible. So yeah, setting yourself stretch goals and having the courage to attempt it for fear of, in spite of worrying about how it might look if you've got egg on your face afterwards. One thing I've realized just from looking at LinkedIn is that there are many people out there doing it, and nobody looks down on anyone that tries and fails, even though it feels like that, especially when you're starting your career. If anything, it's a bit of a badge of honor. So yeah, I would recommend it to anyone if they've got high aspirations.
Why did you decide to change the direction of Bolster?
I think it boils down to what I said earlier about trying to promote a better relationship with the client. So I found that I enjoyed more, meeting with client. You do a bit of it anyway when you've got those transactional sort of sales, if you like. You obviously have to form a relationship with the client, but I realized that was the bit that I enjoyed the most, speaking with the client, and the bit before where we're figuring out how to solve the problem, and the bit afterwards where we're looking back and reviewing how it went and seeing what could have gone better. So I decided that's an area that I want to focus on personally. And I think also from a business point of view, it's safer. It's safer to have a long-term recurring revenue stream than it is to rely on transactional sales, and where after each one you've got to hunt for the next one. It's better to form a long-term relationship.
Mm-hmm. And how's that been going so far for you?
Well, it's for me. It's still early days, to be honest. So I'm still doing a bit more of that transactional one-off project work than I'd like to do.
Mm-hmm.
It was only a relatively recent move, but I think going forward, I'm probably going to say no to any more of that, and say, listen, I want to work with you, but I want to do it on a sort of long-term, sort of higher level, rather than here's a bit of software that I made on a Friday night.
Yeah. Yeah. I think sometimes you have to sort of say no to something because it will create room for something else, even though it may seem, like a bit scary.
Yeah, exactly. That's a really good way to put it. If you say yes to the wrong things, then you don't have time to do the things that you want to do.
Absolutely. Yeah. And what would you say has been the biggest learning curve for you along the way, whether that's with Mina, with Bolster, or with anything that's happened before then?
I think without a doubt it's marketing, and I don't think that's a surprising statement to make for a software developer. Marketing. When I first started Bolster, I had no idea what to do, and I knew that I didn't know what to do, but I almost didn't want to do it, and luckily I didn't need to do it because I had my network to rely on. And as time's gone on, I've engaged with it more, and I've actually found that I really like it. And especially in the last 2 or 3 months, I've developed a real affinity for it. And I'm not very good at it, don't get me wrong, but I feel like I'm getting better and I'm starting to really understand it. And I've made a few I've built a few relationships recently which helped me with that. And yeah, I suppose if anyone is like software developer or not, I would say if anyone's thinking of starting a business, then marketing is probably one of the most important things that you need to consider.
Mm-hmm. So which areas are you sort of starting to learn more about and enjoy? Because obviously there's so many different areas of marketing. Which ones are you focusing on?
Well, I've recently developed a sort of holistic understanding of the different areas that you can focus on, and that sounds obvious, but I didn't realize how much there was to it, and there's people that focus just on email marketing, there's people that focus just on social media, there's people that focus just on optimizing sort of Google Ads campaigns, and all the research that goes into each one of those it's quite substantial. And so I don't think I knew enough before uncovering all that. I just didn't know what I didn't know. And now, because I'm working with Mina and with Bolster, the way that they are marketed is very different. They've got very different sort of target markets, if you like, and very different products. So it's quite exciting to see how Mina is choosing to do things differently to Bolster, and sometimes I take some of that into Bolster, but sometimes I'm now developing enough understanding to say, no, that's not right for Bolster, I'm going to try this instead. Yeah, I think to go back to the original question, for Bolster, my strength today has been my network, and so the marketing efforts are more focused on that now than they are on, let's say, building a brochure site for Bolster. I've made a conscious decision to not try and make it rank at the top of Google when you type in digital transformation, because there's probably about 20 consultancies in Sheffield that are trying to do that. Whereas for Bolster, I'm trying to double down on the fact that people work with Bolster because they want to work with me. And so putting more of a focus on I guess my personal brand and me on LinkedIn and stuff like that, rather than writing content for blog posts on bolstersolutions.co.uk.
Where does the name Bolster come from?
Well, I thought it was quite smart. It's meant to describe the fact that when you choose to work with Bolster, you are bolstering your team. So yeah, you might have an existing team of software developers, and work with Bolster will make the team even better.
Finally, can you offer any advice? You've touched on this already, and you've already mentioned marketing. Is there any other advice that you can offer to people who are thinking about starting their own tech business?
Yeah, so I did touch on marketing, but I suppose what comes before that is doing your research and planning it. And there's a great book that I read called The Founder's Dilemma, which highlights a lot of pitfalls that founders make, first-time founders especially, when they're starting a business. Everything from how you pick the team, how you distribute shares, all the way through to, is this the right time for you to start a business? Should you wait 10 years? So on and so forth. So I would say definitely do your research and read books like that. And yeah, know what it is that you're actually trying to sell. That's easier in some businesses than others. If you're building a SaaS product which does one thing, then you sort of figured it out. But what you're trying to sell and what problem is that solving? If you are building that SaaS product, what is it actually doing for the user? Is the product that you're building the right thing to solve their problem? Yeah.
Brilliant. And sorry, I'm going to sneak in one last question, if that's all right.
Yeah, go for it,
I just remembered it. Because you mentioned your network a few times. So how would you say is a really sort of proactive and enjoyable way to build that? Is it through working and that kind of approach, or have you been to particular events, or have there been other ways that have been particularly helpful to you, even if it's online?
Yeah, okay. So, by far the strongest connections that I have are people I've worked with, and, both sort of colleagues in businesses as well as clients through Bolster and through, consulting in previous jobs, and, suppliers in those jobs as well. So working with someone day to day, solving a problem together, is a great way to form a connection, and hold on to those, especially when I think good people know how to spot other good people. So when you spot another good one, keep hold of them, make friends. You can't have too many friends, can you? And but apart, that's obviously, there's a limited amount of that you can do. So apart from that, you just have to get yourself out there. You're not going to make connection. I mean, COVID permitting, you're not going to make connections sat in your living room. You need to go to networking events, and you need to go to meetups and listen to the talks, even talks. In fact, some of the best advice I was ever given was go to sort of meetups that you're not interested in. Go to the talks where there aren't other people like you, because you'll meet other people that aren't like you. And software developers aren't generally going to need other software developers to help them. But if you go to a meetup on, I don't know, accounting, then you're more likely to form valuable connections where you can help each other.
Yeah, great point. Well, that was great. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you, Sarah. I've enjoyed talking with you.